All right, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in to Brothers of Merit. Taylor, how you doing, man?
What up?
We have a pretty raw episode tonight from past events that have happened in our lives within the past, mainly Taylor's, but within the past week and a half. If you guys haven't read into our blog, we'll attach it to this episode, and you guys can check it out and read it so that we don't have to go into too many details, because I know, Taylor, you'll hit on how hard it was to just write it in general and experience it.
Sure. Well, yeah, and I mean, I guess jumping right in, like, that's part, like you said, like, mostly me. Like, yeah, I mean, obviously, like, I literally lived the experience, but, like, I mean, we've talked about it on the phone since, like, I brought you into that, right? Like, right. You were literally the first person I called before, like, at the same time as 911. And like the brotherhood that needed, you know what I mean? Like, so I mean, it was just as much traumatic for you as well. So you have things to add to it as well. But so we're gonna talk about what happened a week and a half ago now, I guess, at time of listening. And the reason I want to be like super like crystal clear,
right? Like,
the reason for that is because like God is good. And we want to glorify him. Like, that's like now, like me and Amber have talked about it. Like, that's now like our job is to now have God's name be glorified and like scream from the rooftops what he did. Like, right. Amber's like, I literally want to tell everyone. Like, if I have to go out to the store and they're like, oh, how, someone says, how you doing? Like, she's like, I want to break down for like a half an hour and tell them like what happened, because Jesus is so good. And you know what I mean? Like, and then also like, for me personally, a huge part of like my faith journey was when I was in high school and college. So it was like spanning my senior year of high school into my freshman year of college. My pastor of our church, his wife was diagnosed with cancer and then passed away like in that 2-year span. And watching how they dealt with that, like I vividly remember her like with like a cover on her head because she was going through chemo and I vividly remember her like that worshiping, like singing "Sweetly Broken" by Jeremy Brittle. Like, I remember it like it was yesterday, like singing her heart out because she just kept proclaiming like God is good. And I remember thinking like, how are you like that?
Right. At that time,
like that doesn't make any sense. And then she passes away, and the pastor did the funeral. Like, he did her funeral. Like, I can't even, and again, it was like, I don't even know. And it was a celebration of life like I've never been to before. Like, and he was so just like proclaiming like God's goodness. And I remember literally like walking out of there thinking like that was so powerful and so impactful to my faith that if anything ever happens to me, like, I hope, like Job, that's my response. And then I want to be able to like have that same impact on other people. Like, right. I want to then proclaim that because I've lived how much that impacts on the other side. So that's why this episode's happening.
Right. And it lines up, exactly with kind of the events that happened within your life. The fact that, and we were talking about before the episode, and I think it's pretty wild how everything is lined up. And I don't think it's coincidental. Uh-huh. The fact of what we covered in Job, 2 weeks ago, and then what we talked about with John Eldridge, and then what happened, like everything lined up. And it's funny because in the Job episode alone, I remember typing the description of the episode into the Apple Podcast, platforms and stuff. And I basically said, if something were to happen like this in your life, would we respond like Job did? You know what I mean? And then it's like, holy smokes. And then John Eldridge's episode comes along. We talked about like the warrior soul, like really being within brotherhood. And what does it mean to take that next step and have that true brother? And then this happens and it's like, holy smokes. Like, right? It is not a coincidence. No. Like that. I mean, it's just amazing. Like
I mean, literally, like you can't, and that's like, we've always said like the goal is to look like Jesus every day. And one of the things that I learned when I was in college, the president of the college one time told me that like when people ask like, how do I live in God's will or whatever, you're asking the wrong question. Like what you need to do is just look like Jesus every day. And then looking back, that's how you see God's will. That's how you see God was working, right?
Right.
Like when we decided to talk about Job, it wasn't like strategic. Like,
Yep,
oh,
true.
well, then we're going to talk about John Eldridge and we're going to talk about that, like to John Eldridge and record it before something like the scariest moment of your entire life is going to happen. And you're going to need that lesson those two lessons that you just went through by interviewing and having that Bible study like episode, like, you know what I mean? Like that wasn't strategic. That was God working. Like, and looking back over that, we see, hey, God was working
Really
here.
working.
And again, like that's why like we can't help but just be like, he's good. He's always good. And I guess I was gonna wait till later to say this, but like this, he's always good, and the circumstances do not determine that fact. Right? Like I said this directly in the blog, but like the fact that like I was able to hug my girls and kiss them and put them to bed tonight is not the reason why God's good. Right? Like God is good no matter what.
Yep. If
this episode wasn't happening because we had a funeral to attend, God still would be good. Right. Like, and that is unchanging. And I cannot stress that enough.
And that is the challenging part of a lot of things in life, is keeping that viewpoint within our faith. And that's why we're doing this episode and talking about it, is because we want people to realize that he is good.
Yep.
He is there, and he's working on our side every day throughout our entire lives. And we struggle with that. Everyone does. On down times, we sit there and we're like, man, like, what's going on? We pray to him, like, can you help me out? Can you do this? Like, it's just not going right. But it is going right. He is working.
Always.
So I'm happy to be doing this episode.
Heck yeah.
And I'm happy that you couldn't put your girls to bed tonight. You know what I mean? Like, it's I'm ecstatic for it. And it's funny because as we sit here and talk about it even more, Mike was the reason we even did Job to begin with.
Right.
So it's like we were literally thinking of that episode. We were like, all right, we need to think of something, Mike. And then I was like, pick some of the Old Testament. He was like, let's do Job. We're like, all right, we're doing it. So it's like, and that went back months. We're talking, we recorded that,
a long time. That was, you're absolutely right. I didn't even think of it. Like that was like an evergreen episode that we recorded.
Yeah.
Before we even knew COVID was coming.
Yeah.
Like we even said when we recorded that. That's so funny. I didn't even like.
That's what I'm saying. Like God,
I literally remember saying,
he is always working.
Hey, we don't have an episode coming up because the interviews fell through because of COVID and stuff like that. But like God knew that. So he had us record that evergreen episode that night that we had an early episode. And like, I didn't even think of that.
Dude, and that's what I'm saying. It further just paints the picture as to why and how clear he is working every day. So let's go into what you wanted to talk about. I want to break and just roll out. So
I love it.
Let's do it.
All right. So it's funny that this is like the one episode that I actually like have put thought into ahead of time. Like what? And it's because there's like a clear message. We're not here to just like wrap this out, right? Like,
right.
I mean, we are, but at the same time, like there's specific things that like I've dealt with it best by talking to people, calling people like on the phone and stuff. And I feel like most of the time that healing is just like me just rambling through what's happened the past like couple of weeks. So I like had to like be clear because I didn't want to just come on here and ramble for 45 minutes. So I like laid out like specifically a couple of the things that have happened and like whatever. So I guess the first thing I guess is just like the support of being inside of community, right? So that's like brotherhood is like the deepest, most intimate level of that, right? But like you also have to like pull, that's like at the like ground level, but you have to like pull that back at like the 100-foot level and like the 30,000-foot level. Like that was obvious. That was easily the most overwhelming part for me and Amber. Was as soon as it happened, people just started like praying, right, and like hitting the ground, hitting their knees hard, right. Like I I cannot tell you. I was telling Maddie this. I actually can't. Like, I can't even begin to like try to even put numbers around the amount of people that have since told me, and Amber, I've never hit the ground harder, or I've never prayed harder, and I've never just the amount of people that stormed heaven's gates, just begging God to save them, like, is just so overwhelming. Like, that's the thing that has most driven me to tears since. I mean, literally, like, I'm on like the Pray Now like email chain from our church or whatever, and when I got to the hospital and they were good and everything, 100% vitals, and we were like, okay, that's when I finally like checked my phone, and I had like 55 emails in like that hour, right, of like people that had already gotten it out like immediately. I mean, literally, like, I don't know. I don't even understand how it could have even happened, right? Like, that fast. And just like so many people just praying so hard. So first off, like, and this is coming from me and Amber, but like, thank you. Like, if that's you and you're listening, like,
yeah, thanks.
I can't even begin to express to you how much that means to us. Like, if you've reached out to us, or if you were praying, and I was telling Mike before we started recording this, like the people that like respond to those email chains, and like the people that like write out like a prayer, like I used to think like, oh, like, if I see it in time, like maybe I'll send, like, I don't know. Like, that's a ministry, right? Right. Like, that was like overwhelming, like the support and like literally hundreds, if not thousands of you were praying. And from all over the world. I mean, we've had reports, like her dad told us later that weekend that he was like, yeah, my sister told me that our entire church in New Jersey's praying, and we have another church in North Carolina praying. And I got texts from a buddy who's in South Korea on deployment right now. Like, I was in the ambulance, and I got a text from him like, hey man, I just heard, I'm so sorry, I'm praying so hard for you. Like, and again, like all of you guys, and it's just so I just want you to know, like, I don't know how to say thanks, but thank you. I mean, that does mean the world, and like the power of prayer, and the power of supporting is huge, right? Like, and also, like, I don't know, like, I wouldn't have, this is just hitting me now, I wouldn't have thought, like, on Wednesday before that happened, if you would have told me like something were to happen, I probably wouldn't have guessed that number would have happened, right? Like, I wouldn't have guessed that amount of people would have texted me. I wouldn't have guessed. So like, this has nothing to do with like me and Amber and like anything like with our family. Like, I just want to like throw that out there. Like, if like, be like plugged into your church and stuff like that, and like, but like, this has nothing to do with, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like we like, oh, like we have all these great friends or whatever because we're great people, or like the church is made up of people that care about each other, right? So like, like, if you're listening to this and like you are part of a church body, like, you have that support.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and like, I mean, honestly, like, become part of the Brothers of Merit community, and like, we will gladly be that support for you as well. Right. Like, and then also just encouragement to be that support for other
it's
people.
A call to action, honestly.
Exactly. Like, be that support. Like, if you see something or whatever, like, reach out. We talked about it in Al Robertson's episode, the episode before, like, the presence of brotherhood, like the amount of people that have called and said, I don't really know what to say right now, but I just know I want to, and I've just bawled my eyes out to them. Like, that means everything. So, yeah, so like you said, it's a call to action. If you see that, like,
get plugged in.
It's time to get plugged in and be supportive, be that for people. So that was that point.
Yeah, because at some point, somebody else, and it's unfortunate, but it's life and what we go through, somebody is going to hit another life
100%
hurdle, an emotional event that they're going to be going through, whether it's traumatic, emotional, mentally, whatever, and they're going to need prayer. You know, I mean, obviously we all need Christ, and we talk about that every single episode, but we all need him, and we all need each other. So I love what you're getting at with that, and it's, just being transparent. It's actually wild because I didn't know I mean, for the years I've been at CrossFit, I didn't know we had a prayer now email chain. So you saying that and us going through all this makes me think like I need to get plugged into that level. And I'm pretty active with our church. I'm not like, you know what I mean? So that's why it's wild. Like I didn't even know about that. So you're not just teaching and talking to everyone else. You're also talking to hear us on the home front. So
that's a good word. That's a good word. I was just about to say something.
And I, of course, made you forget.
And I lost it. I don't remember what it was. Sorry.
No, you're good.
So moving on.
No, you're fine.
When it comes back to me in the middle of the next thought,
you're going to drop it.
I'll bring it back up.
Yep. Drop the dime.
As I always do. Go ahead. I don't know with whatever you're going to, like your next question or whatever.
No.
I'll get there.
No, yeah. You're fine. So,
cut that part.
No, you're got to cut. That's the good part. Joking. That's what makes people laugh. Hopefully. Joking. Or just laugh at us, not with us. But so after, like, how, obviously it's cliche to say, how are you doing now? But where is your faith level right now? Like on a serious note, like I know, obviously I've been by your side this entire time. So I'm asking this in a way to pry some information out of you to everyone listening. But how are you doing with your faith? Like,
that's a good.
How were you challenged, like Job, after those events?
Yeah, that's good. That's really good, and I love that. We didn't talk about that, but like the vulnerability, like I love that. Yeah, we're doing amazing. And that's all credit to the one who deserves credit. Like
right.
That's the glory and honor goes to the Lord. We're like, I've actually, like the first time that someone asked me that, I was like, oh, surprisingly well. Actually, not surprisingly well. Like that peace that passes understanding, like is a truth. Like it's real. Like I don't know why I'm not expecting that to happen.
Right.
So like we've talked about, like me and Amber, like we haven't felt closer to the Lord in a long time than we've walked with Him this past week. And the girls are doing incredible. They've talked about it a little bit. But God's like protection over them, and like healing over them, like the miracle of, obviously the miracle of bringing them back. Like I said in the blog, to 100% right after, that happened, like immediately, like that's a miracle. But then like He's continued to perform the miracle of like, they haven't had any kind of like trauma or any like kind of like flashbacks or things like that since. Right. I mean, any of us haven't really. So with that, I guess a couple things. One, so we're doing really, really well. God is good. God is continuing to work. Like me and Amber have said, like, and again, we can expect that, right? Like He wouldn't take us through these miracles. He wouldn't have saved them and like been working so powerfully and so big on Thursday night to then just be like, okay, well, now you guys have to deal with this on your own. So see you later. Yeah. I'm leaving after Thursday. You guys can walk the journey by yourself. Right. Like that's not how God works. And in fact, so actually it was Wednesday of this past week. So actually it was the day I wrote the blog, the day before we posted it, was probably the hardest day for me. Like, I don't know why, but just since, and I'm sure there's going to be days like this, you know, it's just kind of like how it goes. I'm sure there's going to be some moments when it's rough. There's still like just moments when I get like flashbacks of it. But God's bigger than all that, right? Like we're just giving it to Him. Like we're literally like, I want to make this point. I do, but I also want to like, before I make this point, like I want the bigger point to be heard, like that we're claiming victory. Like we serve a God who's bigger than the trauma. He's right. Bigger than the pain. Like, so like, yeah, like there's some days when it's not great, but like God is way bigger than those days. And, He's working in a huge, huge way. And again, that has nothing to do with me. That has nothing to do with like the way that we've, you know, lived our lives prior or anything like that. Like that's literally just only glory and honor to God. But so yeah, Wednesday wasn't great. It was just like whenever I had like a moment to myself, I couldn't help but just like stop and like I would picture them and, you know, just like,
right.
You know, the drama stuff. And it was just like hard or whatever. And I like told Amber that on Thursday, and she was like, "Well, you need to go spend some time, and you need to pray, and you need to be alone. Like that's gonna be better for you, and it's gonna be better for all of us. You can't try to do this by yourself." And she gave me like a flip calendar that she had been reading through for the past 3 days, and the first one talked about like the power of our minds and like how we have to give that over to God. And again, like God's timing was perfect. Like how was that the day that, you know what I mean? Like how was that the one that showed up? And on the bottom of it was in Romans 8, Romans 8:5, and it says those who live according to the flesh have their minds set on what the flesh desires, but those who live in accordance with the Spirit have their mind set on what the Spirit desires. The mind governed by the flesh is death, but the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace.
Life and peace.
And so I read that, and I started crying, and I was like, man, like God, for the first, like today, Wednesday was the first day that I was like, we got this, right? Like I'm writing the blog, like we're glory to you, like we got this, right? Like we're moving on, like, and it was such like like yesterday sucked because your mind was governed by the flesh. Like I tried to muscle Wednesday. I tried to pull myself up by my own bootstraps on Wednesday, and I tried to like carry on my own. And it's like exactly like it says in Romans 8:6, which again, what are the odds that that's the day that on that calendar it told me to flip to, right? Like the mind governed by the flesh is death, but like the mind governed by the Spirit is life and peace. Like it was such a reminder, like no, like I sat in my room for like a half an hour, like crying and just being like, God, like I just give you back, like please just take over my thoughts and my mind. And he answers prayer, right? So we've been good, and so we've been really, really good. And that's another one of the points. Well done. That I wanted to make was just the power of prayer, right? And so this is probably one of the coolest, most powerful moments. I'm probably going to do a bad job of explaining because I don't know. Anyway, but so on Friday after it happened, I had to come back here to our house because we were staying at her parents' house for the weekend just to kind of like heal and have eyes on the girls if we needed to go off by ourselves or whatever. And I had to come back here on Friday though to do a home health check with the Child Protective Services. Because with kids that age, they obviously get involved in stuff like that.
And that is
that as protocol.
Yep, that's protocol, and that happens regardless. So,
and which again, like having you be like the voice of truth, like that's another thing I want to talk to later. What is one of the things that's been huge because obviously like that guilt is what we've had to fight. So I had to take her back to the home health, which honestly like, and this is another like this is a side thing. I'm not sure if this is like a passion of ours or whatever, but like just such an eye-opening thing. Like the only thing she had to do for the health check was literally she came in, she checked where the girls sleep, she made sure that the lights turn on, made sure that the water was running, and made sure we had food in the fridge. And then she left. She was here for 3 minutes. And it was like, is that it? I was like, how often is that not the case? And
more than you would
She
think.
was like, way more often than I want to tell you.
And how blessed.
Golly, man. Like, so I don't know. Like, okay, this is a way rabbit trail, but I can't. Like, God's saying something. Like, Amber told me one time that she saw a post one time that said it was someone wrote an article about like Christians that say like, oh, like my heart breaks for like orphans and like fostering kids and stuff, but like I don't know if I'm ready. And it's like I don't like that is such a selfish take. Right. Like, oh, like my heart breaks for it, but like I don't know if personally I can commit my life to doing that. Like these children of God like need help, and like if you even have the thought like, oh, my heart's breaking for that, like maybe it's time to do something. So honestly, if you're listening to this, honestly, that is a call to action to myself and myself alone. Like maybe you're hearing something from that, but like God was speaking to me. That was raw, vulnerable. I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but that was honestly, Amber's gonna.
Oh, you're in the doghouse now.
Just look for like in a good
In a good doghouse.
probably like in a year from now we'll like.
Oh, with Rocky, you're in a great doghouse.
Hey, anyway. So anyway, super rabbit trail. Sorry. I'm back. So I took her over, and then I had to go grab something from the basement because we were staying at her parents' house for like the weekend. And the basement's obviously where it happened. And I didn't think about doing this ahead of time. I didn't plan this out. I wasn't like trying to think through this is something that needs to happen or whatever. But I walked downstairs, and the Holy Spirit prompted me to go over to that spot because the chest is gone. The police took it. It ain't never coming back. But that, the spot's there or whatever. And so I knelt down and I started praying, and then I started just like crying, just like the deepest, like pit of my soul pain, like cry I've ever cried in my entire life. Like, just like the most heart wrenching, and like my prayer became like inaudible. Like I didn't even know what I was saying. Like, just like, and I was like picturing them, and of them being terrified and thinking through that. And I just kept saying like, I'm sorry. And then I was on the carpet with, like on both my knees with my arms spread out in front of me. And I said, but I claim this spot back in the name of Jesus. And as soon as I said that, I stopped crying. As soon as I said, like, I'm not joking with you, dude. Like, I literally like felt the like power of that. Like, I was like, there's power in the name of Jesus. Like, and I claimed this spot back. Like, Satan does not have a stronghold here. There is no evil in this place. Like I pray, God, that you would just like protect this, that you would, send your angels to just permanently, like, this place will be like a memory that Jesus saved them, and that this would like be a moment that would glorify you, and that all of us would be free of pain and guilt and trauma when associated with this spot. And I mean, again, it was like the most powerful thing. Like, I mean, and this is what, like, spiritual warfare is real, right? Like, right. That's like, I'm fully convinced that like there was evil there, like, and that it consumed me at the beginning of that. Like, I didn't, but there's power in the name of Jesus. And so I firmly believe that the Holy Spirit was like prompted me, because he was like, hey, we need to go do war for that spot. So again, that's nothing that I did. I did not, like, that is not like if you're hearing that, it's like, oh my gosh, like, I did nothing. I just walked over and listened when the Holy Spirit said, go there and pray. And then Jesus worked. Right. But since then, like Amber said, like, she's like, I knew I was going to like feel like when I look at that spot, whatever. She's like, I haven't felt anything. The girls, the first day they came back, they ran down to the basement, and Hadley said, oh, let's see if the chest is gone. Yep. The police took it. Yay. Like, we're good.
Moved on.
Like, on Monday, my sister-in-law and my nephew spent the night to like help like ease things or whatever, and they slept on the pull-out couch in the basement in that exact same spot. Like, totally fine. Like, there has, like, and again, like, I'm not trying to, like, I don't need to justify it, right? Like, Jesus worked, and yeah, it was powerful. It's huge. So the power of prayer, the power of, like, that's where my faith is. Long answer to a short question. But man. Way better than I ever could have imagined, is the answer to the question.
That's awesome, man. So. Well, and it's, there's a lot of things associated with what happened that I can only, I can't imagine what you guys have gone through between pain, sorrow, guilt, like everything that you guys are battling internally. But the fact that you both have just done nothing but seeked him and listened to him is what makes everything, to me at least, from the outside looking in, partial inside looking in. But I feel like that is what makes things much easier. Is just being with him, like you said, like how much. It's funny because I just there's a song that my kids listened to at vacation at Bible school last year that says like, I know that Jesus saves, know that Jesus saves. And when you said that, it just made me think of it, randomly. But I really love that how you and Amber have dealt with this. Like I said, going through it with you and like being there for you and all, like how you guys, like seeing her tonight, even just like normal Amber, you know what I mean? Like, like glory to God for everything. Amen. You know what I mean? Like it's been traumatic, like no joke, but you guys have done amazing with handling it and with the girls and everything that's come along with it.
Yeah. I mean, and like I said, I appreciate you saying that. I do. But I'm going to deflect all of that praise and glory right back to him. And not in a, I'm trying to like, that's only because of him working through us.
Right. I mean, that's why we're doing this episode.
Like we said, like we've said before in 1 Corinthians, if I'm going to boast about anything, I'm going to boast about him. And he's working here, and so I'm going to deflect all that praise. Like John 3:30 says, I must decrease, he must increase. Like that's what's happening right now.
Yep.
And actually, real quick pivot, I'm going to ask you, how are you doing? Because I know, like, I mean, I called you, and like I said, I brought you into this, and this is like part of that brotherhood piece, right? Like, I brought you into the scariest moment of my life. And Brandon was here. Like, one of like the miracles that happened was we were actually supposed to do an interview that'll hopefully happen here in the next coming weeks. It's going to be an awesome interview. But that night, and so Brandon was actually expecting a call from me already, and so I called and like one ring, swipe, and it was answered. Like, so like Jesus, had you already there by your phone. And then Brandon made it here in 4 minutes, which is about a third of the time it usually takes you. Yeah, and I also thought through it too. The Upper Co Fire Department is in between my house and your house.
I know. Like
you went twice the distance in half the time.
Yeah.
like God was working in every bit of that situation. Like I take no credit for even calling you. Like I look back and I'm like, I don't really know why. Like the Holy Spirit was like, hey, make sure you call Brandon first, because you're not going to have to explain your address to him. He's going to come with one sentence of you panicking without you even needing an explanation, like 911 and all that stuff. And I mean, I can't say enough about the first responders. Like I'll get there, but so I brought you into this, right? Like that brotherhood piece. Like I brought you into the scariest moment of my life, and it's not like my family is something that is like that you don't interact with, right? Like, so I know it shook you up a little bit too. So how are you doing? How has your like faith journey and everything been since then too?
I'm doing well, man. I think I was over here obviously with the couple days after.
Yep.
And it was tough, as you guys all know. I do it for a living, so I'm used to being called by people on the worst moments of their life. Like that's what I've done for the past 13 years of my life. So it is it's different though when it hits on the home front. When like on your home turf, it's a little bit different. So I went through a couple of things that and that's why we always say like, lean on a brother, because you were the one that helped me through it, even though it was your girls. Like, I struggled with the mental images, and I had to bring the calmness to the storm when I first arrived here, because obviously I know for those that read or just know, I got here first, so I had to be to you and Amber that calm voice when inside I'm panicking just as much because my best friend's girls are in trouble. So I was able to hold it together until...
which you did. I mean, that calm was exactly what you provided. Like, you did exactly what you needed to do.
Right. But inside, I was screaming at the top of my lungs. But it was rough that night, and it really sank in that night. A few hours later, when I was at the house with the police, and they were interviewing me and things, like that's when it started to really sink in, because the cops have to ask required questions no matter what.
And actually, like to that point, sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're good.
But because that was one of the things that like they interviewed us as well, and one of the things that they said was like, sorry, the only thing that we hear is, they were stuck in a chest, and we have to assume the worst, right? And like thinking back to my 911 call, like I wasn't thinking through, I have to explain myself, whatever. Like I was just like,
help your girl.
My girls were downstairs, they were in a chest, and now they can't breathe. You know what I mean? Like that's what I said. And so that's the only information the police have to go off of. So, they're just doing their job. But
exactly. And like I said, and I told the guy after the interview, because I mean, like, I wasn't a jerk to him, or like Eldridge says, I wasn't a dick to him, but I started to get defensive because I mean they're questioning, and they have to. I get it, but they're questioning my best friend's way of parenting, and like love of his children. And I'm gonna try not to get like worked up saying it, but that started to bother me.
Yeah.
And so that started to then recirculate images in my head of the girls I've held for the past 5 years, in different ways that I just don't want to picture.
Sure.
But the next day or 2 days later, the day I was here, you were able to sit there and say, like, thankful to God, don't think of that time. Think of the fact that you're watching them run around the yard now and play and laugh and smile and all. And it's just wild because you think of things and you're like, if there's a problem or something, you go seek external sources to help you. Like go talk to somebody. But that somebody was the exact person that was just dealing with it alongside me, and it was you. So it's been a pretty wild ride. I mean, this week's been fine, but those first few days for me obviously were a little rough. But no, I'm doing well, man. Like and I told you this, there's a line on a Detroit Fire Department did something like 10 years ago. They did a documentary called Burn, and it's documenting their fire department, just all the things that goes on between Detroit Fire Department. And there was this like senior driver. I mean, he had like 35 years on the job. He was just getting ready to retire. And he said a quote along the lines of, I wish my mind could forget what my eyes have seen through over the years. And it's pretty spot on. You know what I mean? Like there's some things I wish that I could forget,
right?
But they're just ingrained in your head and you never will. But what is ingrained also in my head and in my mind and my soul is the fact that how good God really is. Yeah. And it's times like this that I really, really sit back and just, as MJ said, like just palms up, like surrender and just thank you. Like I can't thank you enough. The fact that the conversation I'm having with one of my best friends right now is what it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's positive, and we are able to sit here and laugh and joke around still, and us three in this room can be on that level, and we're not dealing with the emotional crisis that comes along with death or things like that. Like, we're praising him, and Amen. And you did basically have something at risk of being taken away from you, just like Job did. And the way you responded was like Job did. You know what I mean? You reached and drew yourself even closer to him than you ever have before at that moment. And that's what it's about. Yep. You know what I mean? That's why we covered Job. That's why Mike said, let's cover Job. That's why John Eldridge came and said, lean on brothers. Like, everything doesn't happen coincidentally. Like, there is a God, and he is mighty, and he's there for us. And all of this is like full circle on why that is the truth.
Let's go. Sorry, Mike.
Mike's really going to have to edit that one.
No, it fires me the heck up, man. That's what this is all about, right? Like, this is, crap, I don't have this one memorized. I got to look it up. Sorry, bad radio. In Galatians 6:2, it says, carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. I actually got a text this morning from another one of like my oldest friends from high school. I'm still really, really close with a lot of those guys. Like, they're like the guys I grew up with, and I've mentioned it before. I think it doesn't matter. Like the guys that like Brotherhood's been a big part of my life, which is why I wanted to be a part of this ministry. And he texted me and he said, hey, like, these group of men want to carry your burden. Like, don't try to do this alone. Right. That's what Brotherhood's about. right? And that's cultivated through the times when it's great, right? Like, I think that there's, I don't know, there's way too often that like it's easy, I guess, for men to say like, oh, like I know, like deep down, like I love that guy, I'd take a bullet for that guy. But like, why does like brotherhood isn't formed? Here we go. Brotherhood isn't formed from having to take a bullet for a guy, right? Like brotherhood's accelerated when you have to take that bullet.
Right.
But the brotherhood that gets to the point where you're ready to do that is formed when there's nothing bad going on and you are ready to dig in and like form those relationships and you want to get into each other's stories like John Eldridge talked about last week. And then that's how like that is cultivated. So then you can become warriors for each other.
Absolutely.
Right? Like, one of the biggest examples of brotherhood is actually that group of friends, their dads had the covenant group. I've mentioned it before. And when one of their dads passed away, that group stepped up and loved on his family, right? And like danced with his daughter at her father-daughter dance, right? Like, and loved on his family. Like that is like the ultimate expression that it's not just like, oh, hey, we're bros, but you know, like, and I'm bringing this all up because like that happened on Thursday, right? Like I called Brandon and like he woke Arabella up, right? Like you did, like, and then like Ada was asleep during everything, right? And so like once they were both okay, like, and once I had like they were both in ambulances and I heard they were both okay, like I went back in to go make sure that Ada was all right. And Amber's mom and sister had just gotten here and that they were gonna take Ada for the night. And Brandon's in her nursery like holding her because she woke up because of the sirens and stuff. And then he stayed until 11 o'clock until the police did everything that they needed to do. Like, I don't know, a guy you go to the bar with doesn't do that.
Right. It was, and it's, I don't know, man. It didn't even feel like a job to me, or it didn't feel like anything, but just, I don't know, just being here was easy in a way. It was hard, but it was easy at the same time because as I told you, there's nobody I would have rather you'd call it at that point than me. You know what I mean? Like, if that's not being selfish, that's just, we're not just brothers, we're brothers of merit. Like, that's what this means. Yeah. Like, that's why it's named that way. That's what we strive for. That's what we want our listeners to build, is that relationship. Like you said, the brotherhood is tested when the rubber starts to really meet the road.
Right.
And that's when it just compounds on itself and it just gets bigger. Like exponentially stronger.
100%.
And I don't know, man. It was just, I'm glad to have been able to be there for you and Amber. But
I love it.
So how do you want to wrap this thing up? You got anything else you want to tap on? I know you got one more.
No, I mean, I think we're pretty much good there. I mean, the only thing that I'll say, I guess I want to like really just end this. I want to like end everything by just running through how God worked, like just the straight up, like literally just listing off the miracles of everything that's happened since that happened. But before that, like God, because I'm trying to pay attention to time here.
You're good.
I was out driving the other day, and it was an essential activity. Everybody,
don't freak out.
Don't freak out.
He had his mask if he needed it.
And I had the radio on, and it was like the radio like ran like this is. I'm not gonna try to make this part of it bigger than it is. I'm just whatever, because I think sometimes people try to do that. But the radio, that station that I usually listen to, was staticky, so I went to a different one.
COVID got to them, so
right. Like, but I'm not saying like, oh, like God made it staticky. Like, I don't know if that's necessarily the case or whatever, but maybe it was, and I needed to hear the song that was on the other station. Maybe, whatever. I'm not gonna deny it if God was doing it, but I'm not gonna make it more than it needs to be. Like super, super old song. I want to say it's by Michael W. Smith. Is that right? Maybe. don't know. It doesn't matter. I think it's by Michael. It's by Mercy Me. And was on, and it's like it like wrapped up everything, right? Like it wrapped up Job, and it like it's called Bring the Rain. And if you've never heard it, the chorus goes, bring me joy, bring me peace, bring the chance to be free, bring me anything that brings you glory. And I know there will be days when this life brings me pain, but if that's what it takes to praise you, then Jesus, bring the rain. And it was just like, I just started like crying, and it's just, like, because like the beginning's like, hey, bring me joy, bring me peace, bring the chance to be free, like bring me anything that brings you glory, right? Like that, up until that point, that's all they've said. Like anything that brings you glory, God, like, yeah, that's what we want. Like bring me joy, bring me peace, make sure that my life's a pillow for it. But then it goes and it's like, hey, I know there'll be days when this life brings me pain. And I mean, that's exactly what happened, right? Thursday night was a day that brought us pain, and days since. But if that's what it takes to praise you, then go ahead. Jesus, bring the rain. That's what, I mean, I don't know. Like Amber's actually said before, one of the times that I think it was like Friday or Saturday, like right after it happened. I was not, it was Friday night. Friday night I was like wrecked. And her and her dad actually sat with me on the porch for probably an hour and a half and just like spoke truth into me. And it was exactly what I needed to flip the script in my mind. And like God really spoke through them. And I know they'll both listen to this, and I, obviously I've told both of them, but I can't thank them enough for that. But one of the things Amber said was, you always say that you want to pray that God doesn't just keep them comfortable. Like you've made that statement. It's one of the things that we like almost argue about, me and Amber, because she's like, I want to pray that they're comfortable. I want my kids to not have to deal with pain. Like I don't want them to get, but that's not, I felt closer to God this week than I have in a very long time. And that's because of the pain. Like it's because he brought rain. So like, praying, and it hits a little different so it's like, that's what I want to pray for my kids too. Like, I don't want their lives to be simple, because then they're not going to know the true depths of how close they could be with God. Right. And
how much he truly does for them.
It's not hard to wrap my head around. And it's not even hard to say, because I'm like, I believe it. I'm good with it. And God's in control. I've given them over to God a long time ago. Right. And whatever he wants to do with their lives to glorify him, then that's what's going to happen. And me and Amber were actually just talking today. He chose to keep them breathing. Right. He chose to bring them back. And so that just gets me fired up for what he's going to do with their lives. Like they were, you know better than anybody. They were minutes away from being gone forever. Right.
Yeah. They were, yeah.
And, but God was like, nope, that's not their story.
There's more.
I'm going to be more glorified in what's going to happen in the rest of their lives. And through what's going to happen tonight by bringing them back. And that fires me up.
Amen, dude.
That fires me the heck up.
So to close it out, the only thing I say is I pray for all of those listening that you guys can pray that, this is going to sound weird, but like you were saying, I hope, pray that he brings the rain.
Yep.
Like let's just hope that throughout our rough times in our lives, that when things do get tough, that you draw closer to him. And that you do reach to him more than you ever have before.
Yeah. I can't, I'm actually gonna keep reading the lyrics because they're up on the screen and they're right in front of me. But the next verse, is it a bridge maybe? Marty, you know this.
Verse? Because you just got done a chorus,
I'd say the
right?
next verse. Yeah, let's go with that. It says, I am yours regardless of the dark clouds that may loom above, because you are much greater than my pain. You who made a way for me by suffering your destiny. Like, can we pause for a second? Like, I know, like, I'm not trying to like exegetically like dig this apart like this is scripture, but like, that line, like, he's so much bigger than our pain, right? Because he made a way for us already by suffering the destiny of like going to the cross. Right. Like he already come on, right? Like, yep. Whew. So you made a way for me by suffering your destiny. So tell me what's a little rain. So I pray, and then it says, bring me joy, blah, blah, blah. And then whatever there is, the bridge just says, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. That's the message. That's what tonight's about. And we've said, like, if this wasn't where we were, I wouldn't have wanted to force this episode, right? Like, we would have I just want to like make that crystal clear again. If you're still here listening, like, we would have skipped an episode and just said like, hey, something bad happened and we need prayer. Like, right. if we weren't here, like, don't for 1 second, let Satan try to steal what's happening here and think like, oh, they're just trying to grab content because don't for 1 second think that that's what's happening here. Like, holy, holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty. And that's the only message that we're going to like scream
right
for, everything that we do with Brothers in Merit. But we're at a point where we can say that about this situation that, a week and a half ago, whatever, I probably wouldn't have thought as how I would have responded. You know, right. I'm looking at that situation 2 weeks ago and I'm thinking, man, how do you respond like that? Like, that's what I want to like if you're listening to this and you're thinking, holy smokes, like how are they responding to that? Just like we listened to Job and we heard that and we were like, how did he respond like that? I can't imagine.
Right.
Like, it has nothing to do with me. Again, I thought that myself, right? Like, you heard me think that myself. Like, Jesus worked. Like, God was moving. God has been performing miracle after miracle after miracle and showing up in our lives. So that's it.
Thanks be to God, man.
Amen.
But yeah, dude, no, I'm thankful for you wanting to talk about it. I really do think that all you guys listening can benefit from hearing this, because it's not, like Taylor said, it has nothing to do, and just so you can hear it from not just Taylor but me, like, this has nothing to do with Brothers of Merit, has nothing to do with Taylor, Dooley, Brandon, Collier, anybody but God. That's all it has to deal with. And we just wanted to utilize the platform that he has built for us this past year and a half to just tell you guys about it, because we are very fortunate enough to have this at our fingertips to talk about and talk on. So thank you guys for tuning into this week. We hope you all are being safe and not going stir crazy with COVID-19. Hope your noses aren't getting too raw with your... so I guess we will talk to you guys next week.
All right, we'll see you.
Be safe. See you.